And I'm very delighted that I'm joined today by Matthew Quitter. Matthew is the founder of London Electric Cars, and a couple of months ago I had the pleasure of being picked up by him in a vintage Bentley and driven around the sights of London as we whisked through London in a vehicle that hardly made more than a very quiet burring noise, if any noise at all. And we waved at the passers-by who admired the beautiful car. Matthew is on a mission not simply to enable us to salvage beautiful old cars, but to transform our vehicles into electric vehicles through his unique technology that he's been developing at London Electric Cars. And today he's going to tell us a little bit more about that, the impact of the business, and how he sees this as very much the way forward for modern driving. So over to you, Matthew Quitter from London Electric Cars.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Simon, and thank you very much for inviting me along today to talk. So we are here in our garage at the moment. You can see some of the cars behind us. This is the Bentley that Simon got around. It's fully electric. That's probably the most pertinent point about the car, as are all the cars in here. We are under some main train lines, so if you lose me, please let me know. But yeah, we were very fortunate recently to be featured on the Department for Transport, UK Department for Transport's. They produced a video about us and posted on their social media and on their website. So I'm going to let them do the heavy lifting, and I'm just going to show you a quick video and then talk about the business a bit. So here we go.
One of my favorite cars to travel around in is the Land Rover, because it really represents the first time that we've successfully installed a complete Nissan Leaf kit into a combustion engine car. My name is Matthew Quitter, and I'm the founder of London Electric Cars. I'm a Londoner born and bred, and grown up here, and I became more and more aware of how polluted London was becoming. It dawned on me that if this thing was electric, it would be way more pleasant, and if there were lots of other electric cars, it would be way more pleasant. As a small child, I had a remote-controlled car that I built myself, and the parallels between a little battery-powered remote-controlled car and a very large passenger-carrying battery-electric vehicle is actually really surprising. At their hearts are rather simple vehicles, and so I've decided that it would be interesting to try and convert a car to electric myself, but try and do it affordably. We'll take the combustion engines out of these cars, we won't scrap them, you won't have to make a new car, and you save boatloads of CO2 from being emitted. The car in sort of common folklore is seen as this great liberator. That doesn't need to change, but the role of the car, I think, is changing in society. You hear about something called the EV grin, which is people getting into an electric car for the first time, and the experience of driving it is a revelation. So there's these wonderful benefits. The UK is leading the field. We have the technology here, we have the experience, and this is an opportunity for us to develop. It's an entirely new industry, but it is something that is very doable. So I'm hopeful.
Great. So are you able to hear me there, Alex? Great. Okay. So yeah, that was a brief overview of sort of what we do. We effectively convert combustion engine cars to electric. That is the sort of heart of what we do. I'm going to take you quickly through a quick pitch deck that we have. Here we go. This is just a quick overview of the business. Here you've got some examples of some cars we've done: First Classic Mini, Morris Minor, some of our unique tech. So today, the main reason I'm speaking to you is we're looking for investment to grow. So we believe this is the beginnings of a nascent industry, and we think it's going to be massive. We have been going for a few years now. We're one of the biggest companies in the field, and the market we're working in is the UK car market, and it's also the global car market. The UK has 40 million cars. There are 2 billion cars in the world, and the UK car market is worth 80 billion pounds at the moment. So moving very quickly, we are the only conversion company based in a major city anywhere in the world. We're certainly the only one in London. Our unique position as being one of the earliest movers in this market means we've had the privilege of doing some landmark conversions. First Morris Minor, first Land Rover Defender Electric, first Classic Mini. We also have some wonderful customers. We have the Peninsula Hotel Group, who we're doing this incredible Gulbenkian taxi for. And our tech is really what's particularly unique about it is we're able to reuse components from existing electric cars. So Nissan Leafs, Teslas, we get scrapped or versions of those cars. We take the parts out that we need and we repurpose them. And this allows us to offer our conversions at a lower price point. And the reason we're keen to do that is because price is the biggest obstacle to conversion. So the car comes into the garage. It's a fairly simple process. The combustion engine components are removed. We install our electric parts. Modifications are kept to a minimum to avoid any legislative problems. The car is MOT'd, returned to the customer, and they now have their beloved car, but it's electric, and so is removed of any of their environmental concerns that they may have had. The market we're working, as I said, is 40 million vehicles. There are 2 billion vehicles in the world. The UK, along with many other countries, signed up to the the Paris Climate Agreement, which states that we're going to halve our CO2 output within the next 8 years. And one of the ways we've identified to do that is by scrapping half our cars. And so that means if there are 40 million cars in the country, we're scrapping somewhere in the region of 20 million cars in the next 8 years. Without the Paris Climate Agreement, we scrap 1 million cars every year as it is, just on a base level. The market we're working in, we have some similar companies, a company called Lunas, who recently valued themselves at £200 million. You've got electric classic cars who have a TV show, and they're doing expensive cars, 90 to 150,000 pounds, and they are fully booked. And the important thing here is it's a rising tide. This is a growing market. It's new. We're all swamped, completely swamped with demand. The difference, however, is both those companies are looking for high-end stuff. We're trying to do mass production. We're trying to make a difference. We're trying to do hundreds of thousands of cars ultimately. Moving very quickly because we're running out of time. Our intellectual property, which is what gives us value, is our engineering. We have all the components that fit batteries into cars. How do we take components from a Nissan Leaf, put it into a combustion engine car and make that an effective form of transport. We have our electronics that we've developed. These are circuit boards, microprocessors that we use to control the cars. And then behind that, we have our software that lets us run all of this. Sustainability, which is obviously why we're here, is obviously very important. But if you've got any questions about that, we can talk about it later. Essentially, to create a new car, you need around, you exhaust around 17 tons of CO2. So every car that we can recycle into an electric car, rather than creating a new car, saves 17 tons of CO2. So this is a really significant vehicle for impact to climate change. We have a core team here of experienced people, each bringing different facets to the business. We work hard, and we're all very dedicated and quite privileged to be working in a field that really lets you innovate in ways that a lot of us haven't had the opportunity to do before. We've been incredibly lucky with our media presence, and our story really resonates. And so all the stories you're seeing here are, we've spent no money on PR. This is all just word of mouth, people seeing the cars out and about, wanting to experience them, wanting to talk about them. And again, it's a real privilege to just be a sort of early mover in the field and get all that attention. So the real reason we're here talking, I'm pitching you today, is we're looking to grow. and we see this as not being just a little niche industry, but something with a really significant, the opportunity to have real significant impact. Our first goal was to prove, could we do this? And we've answered that. We have cars driving around, as Simon experienced, that are fully converted. They ranges from 80 miles to 200 miles. They rapid charge. They're fully functioning electric vehicles. Now we're ready for phase 2, where we're keen to scale up and really figure out, how do we take this to a mass market? How do we go from doing 10 cars, 50 cars, 100 cars, onto doing 500 cars, and then ultimately get through to phase 3, where we start to look at doing 1,000 cars, and then move on from there, 10,000, 100,000. Just by way of size, a company like Morgan is producing less than 500 cars a year. So if we're able to do 1,000 cars a year, that already makes us one of the largest car makers in the UK. We've got a 4-year plan. We are already a profitable business, or we're an ongoing business. We spend most of our money on development at the moment, but with investment, we are able to grow and grow rapidly. And you can see that through growth, we're able to generate an awful lot of profit. In all, we're looking to raise £1 to £2 million in return for 12.5% to 25% equity, and we expect a return an exit in around 5 years, and that's it.
Thank you, Matthew. That was really, really good. It's a sad fact that so many beautiful cars are simply incompatible with the roads today. You can't really drive a combustion engine, an old combustion engine vehicle in London anymore. So this is a way of salvaging many of those beautiful old vehicles, and as you say, doing so driving with minimal impact.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. How scalable is this business? I think that's something that many people must have asked you before. You've answered it to some extent, and I think you were very modest in telling us about your clients. You didn't mention the Austin Healey's, I think 100 vehicles that one collector has that he wants to take into Dubai.
Yes. So we were very lucky to recently be asked to start a joint venture with a gentleman who's based out of Dubai. He's keen to do just Austin Healey's with us. So we've got an equity stake in that in return for some of our IP to do Austin Healey's. In terms of scaling up, it is, we use a sort of casually around the garage, we refer to it as being a quick fit scheme, where we envisage you bring your car to us, or you book a car in to be converted. We have the components ready to go. The real challenge for us is doing the first version of any car. So the first time we do a Mini, the first time we do a Land Rover, we have to do all the design work to get it to fit. Once we've done it once, we then have the designs and the computers. We have the fabricators ready to go, and we can just effectively just print the components. So we would aim to get conversion times down to days. You bring the car in on a Monday, the parts are ready to go, you come pick it up on a Thursday or Friday. In terms of access to materials, there's obviously a big squeeze on the moment. There's the chip shortage. There's going to be a battery shortage. There's too much demand, not enough supply. One of the interesting things about the area we work in is we're obviously interested in actually how many cars are on the road at the moment, because we take a lot of our components from the salvage or the repurpose market. This in itself is a fascinating area to explore, and one of the really interesting things about being in this business at the moment is there are actually too many opportunities, and it's more a challenge of saying, no, we're only going to take the very best ones. There are roughly 50 gigawatt hours of electric car batteries driving around in the country at the moment. By way of sort of comparison, the UK has 1 gigafactory at the moment run by Nissan. It is capable of producing 2 gigawatt hours a year. If we take a 10% scrappage rate, that means that of those 50 gigawatt hours of cars, batteries driving around, we expect 5 gigawatt hours to return to the industry through scrappage. And this is something, again, that the UK government's only just beginning to wake up to. It's why we've had the Department for Transport come down to visit. It's why we have an all-parliamentary vehicle group coming to visit. And so we see there's a huge opportunity from repurposed used parts. There's also a huge opportunity to speak to you know, second life suppliers. So Nissan, when they produce motors for the Nissan Leaf, they will overorder motors and components. And we have been approached by the people who manufacture those components in whether or not we want to purchase the overrun of parts. So we don't see there being a problem in terms of components. It's really just a matter of picking the right cars, you know, whether it's the modern BMW Mini, whether it's the you know, a VW car, and saying which are the ones that are most effective for us to look at for mass conversions.
I imagine today that it's largely people who have collectible cars, and that in itself is a huge market.
Absolutely.
But is there any logic? Do you see sort of government incentives driving a different approach to converting your old vehicle, which may not be a particularly desirable collectible vehicle, but you may be emotionally attached to, into an electric vehicle, because you get a big bung from the government for doing so? Is that the way you see things moving?
We emailed the OZEV, the Office of Zero Emission Vehicles, to start a dialogue yesterday. In fact, we've recently hired someone who used to work there as a sort of slightly diplomatic ploy. But yes, absolutely. France has already started to talk about a rebate for buying a new electric car or getting your existing car converted. And you mentioned the emotional attachment that people have towards vehicles, and that's actually really important because the car does engender an emotional response. You know, quite often these are vehicles that, you know, you buy a car when you have your first kid, and that car then lasts you through, you know, birth, dropping off at school for the first time, you know, maybe taking them on their first date, first birthday, all this kind of fun stuff. And people don't want to get rid of their cars, and they understand the environmental impact of replacing one car with a new one for you know, for supposedly environmental reasons doesn't actually make that much sense. So yeah, we expect the government to get on board, particularly when they start to understand, which they seem to be doing now, the implications of what, you know, their decisions to join the Paris Climate Agreement, which is obviously the right one, but what that actually means in terms of scrapping. You know, as they say, 20 million cars we're supposed to be scrapping in the next 8 years. That presents all kinds of problems in terms of, you know, simply where do you put these scrapped cars, but also as we transition to zero emission driving, the vehicles themselves are fundamentally different to what a lot of the garages are used to. And we simply also don't have the demand, the supply to be able to provide enough cars to cover those 20 million cars that in theory are supposed to be scrapped. So conversion really does represent an opportunity both to keep a lot of the traditional businesses in existence, because, you know, maybe they're used to using working on a Volvo V70. They know how the steering works, they know how the brakes work, and then it's just a matter of getting them a little bit of EV training. We'd also develop our kits. We're very safety conscious, so we're very keen as the installation process requires as minimal HV experience as possible, because that's really where the skills shortages is at the moment in the UK automotive sector.